Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm doing well. I've noticed that since I responded to the cues of the parents, there's been a couple of relationships that have blossomed.
Really? Tell me more about how you think your practice might be connected to your interactions with the parents.
Well, I noticed that since I've been more intentional with recognizing their cues and saying it out loud, the parents have also been picking up on this. One parent shared her appreciation for how I value her experiences and how I've been aware of her reactions in those experiences.
Sounds like you have been very reflective. How has that impacted your work?
Well, I've noticed that since I've been more intentional with recognizing their cues and saying it out loud, the parents have also been picking up on this. One parent shared her appreciation for how much I value her experiences and how I've been aware of her reactions to those experiences.
Sounds like you've been very reflective. How has that impacted your work?
With this parent in particular, it has been a challenge to engage with her. There are minimal exchanges and conversations, and medical documents that she would submit would be slightly delayed, which required follow-up with the parent. As a result, it would further strain our relationship.
That is not uncommon in professional relationships. It can be difficult to establish trust.
You're right, but since I've become aware of her cues and made a point to show empathy, it seems to have impacted how much we engage.
Well, it sounds like you've identified that responding to the cues of the parents could impact relationship building.
I hadn't thought about how the practices actually complement the work.
It really is a vehicle to help you accomplish the daily goals you already established. As we think about your targeted goal, responding to the cues of the parents, how might you use this during pickup time today?
Each day, I go into the classrooms to talk with the teachers about the children and families. I use the information from teachers as well as information I have to engage the parents. During the interactions, I use open-ended questions and observe their cues as they respond. Today, I'll be doing the same thing.
You've made preparations for your interactions by gaining updated information about the families through constant communication. That'll likely enhance your interactions. Let's prepare for the observation by viewing this brief clip of another person using the practice you selected. Tell me what you noticed.
I noticed that there might have been an opportunity when the video started, but the parent expressed a similar cue moments later. The staff in the video labeled the cue and allowed the parent to reply before responding with empathy.
You identified the practice as well as the missed opportunity that was embedded into the video. Pinpointing the practice prior to the observation is proven to increase the likelihood of success with the goal. Here comes our parent. I will observe your interaction with no prompts as we discussed during our last visit. Tell me some strengths about your observation.
I feel more confident using the goal. I now slightly identify opportunities as they happen, and I get excited because the practice is so noticeable.
You really are sharpening the tools in your toolkit one by one. I noticed that your interaction seemed to flow effortlessly. You used pauses, questions, and your goal in a way that was effective and engaging. Based on today's observation, it is clear that your confidence with identifying the goal has increased because I also noted that there weren't any missed opportunities.
Yes, I've worked on this goal with great intention.
You have worked so hard on this goal. Here are some coaching logs from our last 3 visits. If we were to sit them side by side, tell me some things you noticed about your targeted goals.
If I look at the pie charts from our last visits, I can tell that I use them less frequently. Then looking here at the summary box, the examples you captured me using, the quality seems to have increased in each visit. Before I was saying things like, "You seem happy," but later in the most recent log, I was able to capture more subtle cues that led to deeper conversations that connected to something meaningful like goal writing.
Those are great observations. Do you notice any trends in the other practices you used?
I noticed that in every one, I also had similar numbers in listening to understand and following the parent's lead.
I noticed that as well. Tell me why you think that is.
To me, it all feels like I'm building the relationship with a foundation of respect by doing more listening than talking.
Well, that makes perfect sense. I can see how getting to know and understanding your families could create stronger partnerships. When you look at the type of activity that was observed, Does it seem like the activities that were observed were varied enough to accurately represent all your interactions?
I think that type of activity might warrant more opportunities to respond to the cues.
Was there anything else you noticed?
Yeah, I actually realized something. I can recall the exact observations based on the examples. The parents that I spoke to during these observations are parents that generally engage in fluid conversations. I wonder how the data might look in more difficult conversations.
Well, that's a great point. How do you think you'll collect this data?
I guess I need to be more intentional during each interaction and prepare for them just as we did by modeling with my peers before my pair interactions. Reflecting and exchanging feedback during our briefings have been very helpful, so I will ask my coworkers to do the same if they happen to hear any pair interactions.
This is a great way to sustain high quality practice. I'd like to hear about how it goes when we meet again for coaching. As we wrap up, tell me, which of the practices do you feel is your strength?
When we started, I identified engaging and shared attention, but now because I'm more aware of the practice, more aware of when I use the practice, and more aware of the type of conversation the practice would produce, I think responding to the cues of the parent is my new strength.
I would agree. When you think about where your parents are as it relates to their role as parents and community members, what comes to mind?
My parents are dedicated role models and are doing well as parent advocates. I have noticed that their leadership is not as strong.
When you think of strong leadership, what's your first thought?
When I think of strong leadership, I think of taking initiative and being engaged.
Is this something you think you'd want to work on?
Absolutely. I would love to get to a place of understanding and trust with my parents, that they build self-confidence and feel safe to take healthy risks.
How would you rate your current level of understanding and trust with your parents? Above, average, or below?
I would say average because there's still more that could unfold with their self-confidence.
Do you find yourself affirming their efforts or acknowledging their experiences as valuable?
I affirm them sometimes, but I haven't paid attention to either of those strategies.
Well, these are actually practices that really build rapport and relationship building. It might be the vehicle that helps build parents' self-confidence. Would you like to try to incorporate one of these into your practice?
I would love to give both of them a shot. I have a home visit coming up next Tuesday, and it would be a great opportunity to highlight their efforts, knowledge, and experience.
Okay, we can try doing them both to see how it unfolds. We could try watching a video with each one of these practices right before your home visit and discuss how you might use it that day.
I think that's a good idea. Thanks so much. This has been really helpful. I'll see you next Tuesday.
See you next Tuesday.